Howdy, Art.
Hi there, how you doing?
I'm all right.
Can
You're
you
the
hear me?
first. Yeah, yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you fine. Yeah, I'm
You're the first one here today.
oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, just a minute. Let me get my camera on. Come on. Huh. That's weird.
Nothing ever goes smooth, does it?
Well, occasionally, but hmm, why is this not going smooth?
Um, I turned on the recording, so maybe
Okay.
there's a pop up or something or a pop under that says
Hmm.
I had it turned off because nobody was here, so I turned it back on.
Okay. Why is it not starting the video?
So I bet there's a pop under somewhere that says
Well,
accepted that we turned on the recording or something. It it
okay.
it did that to you one other time, I remember.
Yeah. You know what? I think I may have to
Jump out.
reboot. Well, I'm gonna jump out. I'm gonna reboot actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll be back.
All right. I
Just
will leave everything the way it is.
okay. See you in a while.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay.
Okay, I'm back.
And I can see you.
And I can see you.
Uh,
Why is my camera so... Okay, well,
well, now that's a personal problem.
yes, it definitely is. Definitely is. Yeah,
I can't help you with that one.
I think well, I got two cameras here, and the one I'm using apparently is positioned wrong, but come on. There we go.
Well, you remember that round display from last week, the bigger?
Yeah.
I got some stuff working on it.
Wow. Okay, cool.
So there's a little
Oh,
they call that a zoom quilt.
yeah.
It's a MJPEG, and it just keeps it goes over and over and over. This video,
Just cycles in and out and in and out.
it keeps going like a zoom, but
Okay.
eventually it loops back to the beginning. So
Okay.
um this video is like 10 hours long on YouTube, and it's chopped down to, I don't know, 20 minutes. So something like that. It cycles through. It's like 2.5 gigs when I downloaded it, and then it turned out to be like, I don't know, 78 megs or something when I converted it. So it is a very, very small file, but the original demo um was by Moon on Our Nation. Um
Moon on our nation. Okay.
he makes a lot of TFT video drivers.
Okay.
Um and I actually think I'm not sure, but he makes a lot of stuff for LilyGo.
Okay.
So I think he probably works for them. And or at very least they use a lot of his stuff. But he's a very smart guy. But the original demo that he had did not work. It was about half, and the screen was kind of flickery and everything. Turns
Mm-hmm.
out, so this display is 360 by 360. Well, it turns out that I oversized the video by 480 by 480, and I moved it partially off the screen. So as soon as I moved it partially off the screen, it stopped flickering and it stopped doing all kinds of stuff. I don't know if it's because I resized it to 480 or if it's because I moved it off the screen, but I suspect it has something to do with both.
Hmm.
So, and if you really, really, you probably won't be able to see it on the camera, but if you look really, really close, you can still see a little bit of flickering right here. And if you watch the original video, there's a little bit of flickering right in there too. So I think it has something to do with how this actually works.
So, what is the physical display technology?
Um,
Well,
it is a board that I have not seen before. Um, ST77918 is the number of the display.
Okay.
Um,
But what I was asking, is it LED or is it
yeah. I'm sure it's LED, LCD, LCD,
okay?
it's TFT. I'm pretty sure they had it listed as a TFT display.
Okay.
Um,
Now, where'd you get this?
off of AliExpress.
Okay.
Um,
And what's the plug that goes into the rim there?
that's the USB-C cable
Uh-huh.
providing power and programming. So
Okay.
so this display, the original demo for this display, um, was a display for temperature and a whole bunch of system stats for your computer. It
Okay.
it was obviously made for something other than what it was sold for. Now Barry had kind of thought that there was some technology that was able to display certain things that was phoning home to China and telling them more stuff than they needed to know. And he kind of
Okay.
thought that this might be related to that. And I can't deny that because they obviously have a bunch of these things that apparently they can't sell as what they were designed for.
Okay.
And you know, turns out they've got an ESP32 S3 in them. There's no GPIO. There's no the there's an SD card, so you can access some GPIO off the SD card. There's MP3 player, speaker kind of deal, but you need an external speaker to make it work. There's a microphone, so obviously this thing was listening for something. Um, the demo that they had on there still kind of had the temperature display, and but you could cycle through and it would show pictures and do some other stuff. So yeah, I'm kind of with Barry, thinking this was something that was meant for something else, and they've got thousands of these things, and now they don't know what to do with them because they can't sell them as what they were here in the States.
What is being displayed on it now?
It is called a Zoom quilt, and it's just a
Oh,
demo. It's just a demo of zooming. It's an MJPEG.
okay.
Um,
I just couldn't make out the image, and I didn't know whether I was supposed to be able to or not.
well, I know the camera's not great for it. It's a very crisp and clear picture if you see it in person. It's remarkably clear.
Now, can you strip that um, MJPEG off of there and just show it on your screen?
Um, so if I try to well, if I try to display it on the computer, it doesn't move. But I can give you the link to the uh YouTube video that I downloaded to get it to
Okay.
work. Maybe I can give you that link.
So you're going to do that through the chat?
I will have to. It's on the other computer if I've still got it. Um,
Hi, Vasante.
Hi, hello. My
l-
camera was disconnected again. Ah,
let me see if I can hunt it down and figure out how to get it to you. But it's a basic there. It's real thin. You can see the SD card there. That's the microphone hole. That's the speaker hole. That's the reset hole. And that's it. That's all it's got.
Let me ask a $64 question. Have you taken it apart?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Naturally, we knew that.
This is the one I took apart. I broke it.
You took it apart and it still works.
Yes, it does. So it's in a really nice metal frame, but the back of it is plastic. The back
Okay.
of it is actually taped on.
Oh,
There is a temperature sensor and there is heat tape mounted directly to the ESP32. I did not know that when I took it apart. So I'm very carefully going around the rim, pulling the tape up, and it's starting to come off. It's starting to come off, and it won't. And I'm just like, why won't this come up? And all of a sudden, I went just a little too hard, and it went crack. And I went, oh, that's why it won't come up. So there's 3 wires connected to it. They're not very long. It's short. They're short little wires, and I cracked a little part of it up here, and it went back together, but it's not quite right, and it's not quite sitting on the ESP32 the way it was. It's not hot right now, but I've felt it get kind of toasty. So so I didn't damage it per se, but I didn't do it any favors either. So
What's the name of this thing?
um I found it on AliExpress. It's a 1.8 inch TFT round display, and that's going to be easier to find than 1.8 inch round screen QSPI 360 by 360. And they're around $20. So let me
it's a lot of technology for $20.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is and it isn't. If you know what I mean, because it because it has no GPIO, it's good for like a Wi-Fi display or something like it was designed for, but it's not real good for general purposes.
You have capacitive touch.
It does have the touch. I've got the touch screen working. I got the MP3 player or the music player sort of working. I got it streaming some songs. I can't get it to read off the SD card for some stupid reason.
This is for a Minion Eye.
Do what?
A Minion Eye, the cartoon, the Minion is the name. Minion.
Minium?
Minion.
Well, I kind of agree with Art that it sounds like there's a lot of stuff in there for $20.
Minions. Minion.
Well, let's just say this one is also an S3. It's a smaller display for one, but it's got the encoder, It's got GPIO that you can't see. It's got a really nice display. It's got two GPIO ports. It's got you can't see it. It's got the a minion. Yes,
Medium.
minion.
You can make the eye.
The eyeball.
Uh-huh.
So this one came from M5 Stack, and it's got an encoder. It's got two GPIO ports. It's got an industrial style power port underneath the S3. It has an optional battery capability. It's got some other sensors built into it. It's got the thing. It was $25. And can't see it. It's too bright.
And you can
That's
mount it in a panel. In a
yeah,
hole.
you can mount it in. Well, that's basically what it. I 3D printed a mount, and it comes with a little
Yeah.
ring connector,
A bolt.
and that's Twiggy, not Twiggy. Dr. Theopolis from being displayed on it. Beep 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 beep. From Buck Rogers. Anyway, this is bigger. It does have the SD card. So I guess, size-wise, it doesn't have the encoder, and it doesn't have any extra GPIO, which is more than capable of having GPIO. And it's around $20. So it's a good deal, but I think that was a better deal for $25 because I can add stuff to it. Does that make sense? I put the link to the AliExpress.
Yeah, I saw that. A number of years ago, my daughter bought a turd-up house. I told her I didn't think she should buy it because there were too many things wrong. But we had to hire an electrician to come in and try to sort out the wiring. And he was standing on the sink, had taken the light out of the overhead compartment and reached up with his telephone into this compartment and was looking around. And he pulled up on his watch the display. So he could look on his watch and see that. I thought, well, that's pretty cool. I think I'd be interested in that. So my stepson found this one in the trash.
Oh, nice.
I don't know how many times it would be nice to be able to reach around and look on the back side of the wheel in the car and see in real time what's back there. But the technology to do those types of things in a little bitty watch is amazing to me.
So something like that with the GPIO on it, you can connect an external camera to it and kind of do the same thing. Or you could use a wireless camera and display it on there.
Is that just press fit there?
It's not even press fit. Because it's got that retaining bolt there.
Yeah.
It's screwed up. I screw it into the thing. I can.
So it's like it's a panel mount then, basically.
Basically, this was kind of sort of semi. I call it cheap industrial because it's plastic. It's not metal. you would never really find these in a factory, right? Because they need to be hardened glass and more robust. But it could be panelized. You could put it in a panel. Maybe a clean room panel or something where there's not going to be a bunch of debris floating around.
You'd have to put it in an environment with people who care about things.
Something like that. You're never going to find it out on a manufacturer floor.
No,
Yeah.
those people can break hammers.
Yes. Let me see if I can find the video and put the video up there. It should be in my YouTube history. I just got to find it. Oh, that was easy. That was way easier than I thought it would be. Send this over to that. And okay. I am going to share my screen. This is the original video. 10 hours long.
And it just keeps going.
And keeps going. And keeps going. Yes.
Oh, but it's a repeating image.
Oh, really?
It is I haven't watched it long enough because I just don't. But I've got like the first little bit of it, and then it starts repeating. I think mine starts over at about this point right here. Because obviously putting 2.8 gigs even on the SD card would be insane. That would just be a lot of, yeah, see, I think mine starts over about right there. But I will put a link in the chat. So let me copy this. And we do not need to watch that anymore. Now, I think that the guy Moon on Our Nation, he didn't provide that video. You have to actually download that yourself. So I think that's probably might constitute a copyright strike.
Yeah.
Because it's probably a copyrighted video. But he did say what to look for and how to convert it. And like I said, his instructions were good. I have no doubt that what he said worked on something. It just didn't work on that display. So I screwed around with it long enough to get it to actually do something that actually resembles the video. So this is where I think mine restarts. See, it's smooth. It's like a smooth transaction back into the beginning. Yeah. So you don't really notice it. And I got his other demo to work without any problem at all. His other one, I'm loading it right now. His other one is the Earth spinning. So it's not zooming, it's just rotating.
Okay.
And it's fairly smooth. Except for the little change I made where I wanted it to, he had it stopping at one point. I wanted it to continue, but it's not a full, it doesn't make a full 360-degree turn in the first place. So you could see it kind of go, it stops and then it jumps to the start again. But it's reading it off. It's getting ready to load it. It's reading it off the SD card. And
What size SD card will it take?
good question. It came with a 512 meg SD
Oh,
card.
really? Like a 20-year-old SD card.
Yep. I bought. I need to stay off AliExpress at 3 o'clock in the morning. I bought this thing at 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't really read the description of what I was buying. I just, oh, it's a round display and it's $20. Okay. So I bought two of them, of course.
It's
One for a
a
backup, huh?
So it shows up and I'm like, oh, cool, it's got an SD card. Oh, cool, it's got an SD card in it. Oh, 512. Oh, that's really cool. Oh, 512 megs. It was like, when I first read it, I was like, 512 gigs, that was worth the $20. I'm going to go buy more of those suckers.
Okay.
You can, it's about ready to jump. Yep, it just jumped. Did you see
Yeah.
it? It just kind of stuttered. Yeah. It's not a bad demo. I'm guessing that one is free because he actually provided that one to us. So, now he's worked on the Arduino GFX graphics drivers. The manufacturer of this gives you some LVGL code, which works just fine, except I do not like LVGL. I think it's overly complicated and it's large. It's large code. So when I saw that he was working on the same display, he made the Arduino GFX library work with this display. And it's a smaller code base and it's the package is more compact. I mean, basically you tell it you want to display something, and where to display it. And that's pretty much all you have to do with that, right? You want to display a picture, you tell the coordinates to display the picture.
You will need 4 of those for the Batmobile wheels.
Oh yeah, that would be cool. I could see that. Put that in the hubcaps.
I didn't quite understand what you suggested.
Put the Batmobile emblem
Oh,
or the Batman emblem, and then stick these in the center of the hubs for the wheels.
And rotate the image.
And if it had some sort of stabilizer in it, so that the image is always
horizontal. Okay.
here. You go, Vicente.
Okay. You are in the path.
I had to turn the screen brightness way down so that the camera could actually see it, but Batman 66. So that was done with the Arduino GFX library. And let me see. All I had to do, I use this image all the time for testing, like the small displays and stuff because it's a small image. And all I had to do is change 2 lines in the Arduino in the GFX code to work with this display. That was it. 2 lines. I had to tell it the pins of the display, and I had to tell it what display driver to actually use. And that's it. So that's one reason why I like that library a whole lot more. It supports a wide range of displays, and almost, other than maybe a scaling issue or something like that, you could just move code from one side, one display to the other, and it just works. I mean, you might want to resize your image to actually fit this display, but as a test, boom, there he is. He's right there.
Yeah.
I mean, I say I only changed 2 lines of code, which is true. That's the biggest too, but I did actually have to move him because I have him at 0, 0.
Was in the corner,
Yeah.
out of the.
So I had to
out
move
of the
him
image.
over.
I was thinking on that, so I thought it's okay.
I had to move him over, but I mean that's nothing. And then to actually make it so that it showed up on the camera, I had to add a little extra code, but again, that's not that easy peasy. And I was getting ready to look to see how big this was. So this used 13% of program memory, where it is actually about the same. So, oh no, that's not the Batman. That's not Batman. So I've got Batman using LVGL, and I'm getting ready to load it on here, and I'll see how much program memory it uses. But I like the universality of just being able to move stuff around for different displays. It really does make stuff nicer. So you could design something on one thing and just move it over to something else with only changing a few lines of code.
So what is the largest SD card it can handle?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I'm guessing, I don't know. I would guess maybe 4 gigs. I might have a 4 gig card. I might try that, see what it says. Maybe 16. I'm trying to think. What was the biggest small what you call it? Oh, this is the the biggest small thing that FAT32 would work with.
Oh,
Yeah. Is that 32? Is that 32 gig?
I don't think it'll go that big.
16. I think it's 16. So this might be able to handle 16. It's reading the FAT32 partition. So I just tried to upload the other Batman sketch. And that's one thing that this it gets weird sometimes. Sometimes you've got to hold the reset button in while you're uploading. And I don't really understand what the difference is or why you have to, but the reset button's recessed inside of there, so it's not even like a button. You've got to push on it. And then after you do that, you've got to actually reset the display. So this is a slightly larger image, and it's using LVGL, and it's using 20% of the program memory. And I can't figure out how to just make this a black background so that it's not all white. I just want it to be a black background. I can't figure out how to make it do it. I don't like it. So that's my rant. But let's see. My little SD toys. Let's see what I've got.
What is it, a micro SD?
Well, I got all my flash drives, and then micro SDs are down in this little holder here. Let's see. 16. That's a good size. Let's try it. So I will copy the file off the whopping 512 meg card to the 16 gig card. And okay.
I have a board with the same microcontroller. It says that it support up to 32 giga.
Okay.
Let me share the.
You should be able to. That.
This is the
But
Xiao ESP-S3.
but
Here support 32 giga up to.
doesn't that depend on which driver you're using or
Yeah.
which? I don't have a 32 gig. That is nope. I've got a bunch of 16s, and for some reason it's not reading the 16 gig card. Okay, it read that one. I'll drop that file. And it's copying.
You maybe in a Raspberry Pi you have a 32 gig in some Raspberry Pi, but you need to format
Yeah.
it.
Oh, I'm sure I've got a 32 gig somewhere. I just don't have it here next to me. I'm sure there's a 64 gig somewhere. That is the one that I just put on there. Push the SD card back into there. And then I need to reload the Zoom demo. I wasn't expecting to get an SD card at all. I mean, honestly. So even a 512 meg SD card was a bonus. It the display works with the Arduino IDE, obviously. You select a generic ESP32 S3 device, and then you've got to make a few changes because it's using QSPI and it's using QIO, and it's got 16 meg flash, 128, no,
Yeah.
16 meg flash. So you've got to make a few changes. It's reading it off the 16 gig. So we know it will at least go to 16. So
You can make the Iron Man reactor. You see?
I don't know if you were here when I opened it up. There's a metal plate in here that is acting as both a heat sink and a temperature sensor
Okay.
for the chip. I took a magnet, and of course it'll stick right to it. So I had it
Okay,
on.
okay, you can put it on. Yeah, nice.
There it is. Had a little battery, had a USB cable running down with a battery in my pocket.
Well, use the cable around your neck, you know?
Yeah. I gotta rotate the screen to do it the right way, but I had it like, up like that.
Yeah.
Because this is the default top of the display.
Okay.
This is what the display I want. You make that magnet stick to the plate in your head.
Oh, it's my third eye.
I like the analog needles in those displays. You know?
I was thinking liar's poker.
See, I haven't figured out why sometimes it wants you to do a hard reset, and sometimes it just programs clear through. It's enough to drive you kind of crazy because, like I said, the reset button's actually recessed. You need something small to poke into that hole. Do you like analog buttons, huh? Or analog? Oh, of course. I have to reset this stupid thing. I said reset too many times.
So you need a calibrated bent paper clip, right?
Yep.
Yes, that would help. Probably. And it's not just pushing the reset button. It's you have to hold it the right way, and you have to hold it until the programming starts, and you have to pull the power and plug it back in while you're doing all this. I mean, it's a pain in the.
So you only have to have 4 hands to make this work.
Yes. A third hand would come in handy when you have to reset the stupid thing. And it still didn't do it. I got a clock demo that it's just a generic. Okay. A generic clock on a round display. It's got hands and everything that moves, and
So it's an analog clock
on
on a round display.
on a digital
Round
device.
digital display, yes.
If I could get the stupid thing to reset.
There are advantages to analog displays if you're looking at a number of instruments at the same time, and normal is all like that, and one of them's like that. You don't have to think about much.
Well, it's like a plane, like a 1950s plane, where you have all your panel, and anything except straight up means
Yeah.
you know.
There's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should pay attention to that.
Oh, that's cool. That is definitely cool.
That is it's not keeping the right time or anything, obviously, but
Well, I mean,
it's
details.
it's a great base starting point for something though. It shows how to make lines move and how to make them little segments. And that actually kind of shows how crisp that display is too.
Yeah,
It's very clear.
it's very impressive.
The camera really doesn't do this thing justice. This is one of those displays you've got to see it in person to go, wow. So would I buy it again? Maybe. I don't know what I'm going to do with the two I have. As a wireless display, these things are awesome though. But I was thinking about maybe making a little weather display or something so that it would tell me the temperature outside. throwing a temperature sensor out the back window and having it communicate to this thing and display the temperature.
Is the USB cable the only source of power to it? So Okay.
Yeah.
If you're not using the USB for communication purposes, could you provide another power supply through that so that it's really not non-tethered?
Um, I am sure, like my charging cables.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the charging cable would do it, would provide power to it. I have
Well,
some USB charging cables.
I, this is not a fully formed thought. Very few of my thoughts are fully formed, but this one in particular is in process. If you have wireless communication with it, you really don't need the USB cable for communication purposes. You need it for
Right,
power.
right.
So if you can provide an alternate source of power, you really do have the ability of sticking it on your forehead and communicating it with it through a number of ways.
And see, this one would be nice for like a badge or something because it is real thin. I mean, it's pretty thin. That's the unfortunate part. There's no battery. There's no way to really add a battery to it without making it thicker,
Yeah.
right? And this one's pretty thick. This one really would not make a good dis badge or anything, but it has a way to add a battery to it. So you would have to probably make this at least at least as thick as this, maybe a little bit thinner, but in order to add the battery. And that's really the downside to this is it has to get its power from USB.
So there's no way, there's no inductive connection like you have on a cell phone or whatever, where you can lay it on a coil and it keeps it charged and so forth and so on.
Let's see. Inductives are usually a coil, right?
Well, that would be normally, for example, a lot of the small tools that I have, including a electric toothbrush, have an inductive connector, and the base has a coil in it and some other electronics because it works at, I don't know, 4 kilohertz or 400 kilohertz or something like that. And then there's a mating coil in the toothbrush,
Right.
and you have the same thing with um, cell phones. You can lay it on a charger and it
And
inductively.
and most of the inductive stuff that I have seen have magnets in it to hold it in place, right?
Yeah, they need to. It needs to be in fairly intimate connection
Yeah, see this
because
when you said that, I thought, well, hey, maybe that little bit of wire that's in there is, but it's not. That's got to be part of the temperature sensor.
Well,
Because one, it's not a coil, it's a plate. So
what you're talking about is just like this watch on this holder.
yeah,
exactly.
As I dump
Oops.
that's the magnet is not strong with that one.
well, either that or I didn't have it on there completely. In any event, I don't think I want to drive down the highway with it hanging onto it.
It's so I suppose because you could get an inductive coil small, you might be able to do something like that. But
That's
you'd have to solder something somewhere.
But you also have to have something that will take the inductive signal and turn it into
Yeah,
DC again, and so forth and so on. It's a little more complicated than just adding a coil.
I know they made an inductive coil pack for cell phones that didn't have them at one time. And those were relatively thin, but they plugged into the USB port. And the problem, you're still relying on USB power. You're just doing it wirelessly because your charging coil is still plugged in to a power supply somewhere.
You don't have any storage device, so it has to be constantly engaged to provide the power.
Right,
It's not plugged in, but it may as well have been.
right. So it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting thought experiment, but I'm not sure that it would actually be any better than what this currently does. But yeah, I think my those USB charging cables that I've bought a bunch of should be able to power this thing without any problem. I mean, it's just a USB charge. There's no data line or anything in them. It just does charging. So should be able to hang that up on a wall with a cable going up into the bottom of it and hide the cable somehow.
Well, I'd like to change the subject for a moment, if you don't mind.
That is very good because I am rambling on and on and on.
I mentioned earlier that my daughter had bought a house that I had characterized as a turd. And 2 years ago, she was leaning against the facade of the fireplace and noticed that it moved. So the brick facade that went up and across had a limestone mantle that had been covered over with a wood mantle, was loose. It was only being held in place by a brick joint, a single brick joint at the bottom, and that was cracked. So the slightest provocation, that whole thing would have tipped into the room and crushed somebody. So she and I went through and disassembled it and took it down. That left her with a firebox and the masonry chimney. And she had been working, thinking about what she wanted to do with that for quite some time. She finally decided how she wanted to have it reconstructed, purchased the bricks, and hired a mason. And we were in the process of looking at what needed to be done and drawing it up brick by brick in SketchUp so that he knew exactly what she was intending to get. So the ash pit door in the bottom of the firebox was stuck. It was a cheap ash pit door to begin with. It was not cast, it was stamped, and it was riveted rather than pinned. So I couldn't get it open. She couldn't get it open. And so I've got my hand against the back of the firebox and I'm reaching in there, manipulating it. And I realize the entire firebox is loose. That I can feel the bricks move, the fire brick move. So the next time the mason comes to look at it, we say, oh, and by the way, that needs to be fixed. So he outlines what he needs in terms of refractory to do that. So we end up buying 100 fire brick at $3 a piece. but we're hoping he can salvage some of the fire brick that is in the existing firebox. So he's in there with his little Hilti hammer breaking that apart. And I am in the backyard as he brings the refractory out. I am there with my brick hammer chipping off the mortar and preparing them for him to examine, because you can add up a lot of money, $3 at a time for bricks. So he comes out and he looks and says, no, that's no good. That's no good. That was okay. Okay. And he comes back out in a few minutes and he said, I found the problem with the fireplace. I said, what do you mean? He said, come here and take a look. And this is what he found and had me come out and look at. He had taken the remainder of the fire brick out, and behind the fire brick was this.
Huh? Oh,
Nice.
I don't know whether you can see that very clearly. That's concrete and Stroh's beer cans.
So the original manufacturer had parties building your house.
Masons who laid up this fireplace were in there drinking Stroh's as they did it and throwing their trash between the masonry in the chimney and the firebox. And so, yeah, he discovered the source of the problem, not only for the firebox itself, but also the facade as to why it had no brick ties and was getting ready to fall into the living room.
Wow.
So he said, I don't think I can get those out of there without destroying the integrity of the stuff that they've got in there. So when he rebuilt the firebox, there's a 5-pack back behind there because he could get one can out.
Wow.
Did she consider just doing away with the fireplace?
Yes, she had considered that. They haven't been able to build a fire in that fireplace for the 4 years they've been in the home. There was evidence that the firebox and masonry was allowing waste gases to not only go up the flue, but to invade the house and get on the drywall and the surround. So they were concerned about catching the house on fire, and justly so. In consideration of the value of the masonry chimney and having a fireplace with the house versus the cost of rebuilding it, it was a financial decision, and they decided to keep the fireplace. I think in terms of resale, if they ever sell it, that would be a good point.
So there was a legitimate flue that goes out the roof?
It is a masonry chimney on the end of the building. So it has its own foundation and exists on the outside of the building. So this is an opening. The firebox is the penetration into the living space. And then the interior of the house has the facade of the fireplace, the hearth, and the mantle. So yeah, it was not just a flue. It is an entire masonry chimney. It's worth keeping. Anyway, I thought you'd appreciate discovering the source of the problem.
That it's like a time capsule inside your fire, or inside the fireplace.
The people who did this work They knew it was going to be covered up, and they had absolutely no concern for anything. It was just trash that was thrown back there, and thrown back in such a terrible, nasty way.
Yeah. Well,
If I might share another one here.
a time capsule of trash. Okay,
So there's the mason laying the fire brick for the firebox, the base of it, and this is the crap he found behind when he tore out the old firebox. You can see it was just trash thrown back there.
they got the job done, and that was good enough.
Yeah. Now,
Wow.
Don't they, where she lives there, don't they have things called building inspectors?
you would think so. This house had work done by several previous owners who never got a permit and never got the knowledge of what the hell they were doing. They ran six American wire gauge cables across the attic, not in conduit and not in a cable of any sort. They were individual wires, but they didn't buy long enough to go the entire way from the breaker box to the garage. So they joined them all in a junction box in the middle of the attic and didn't even solder the wires, put wire nuts on them or anything. They just twisted them together, put black electrical tape, and didn't even bother to put a cover on the box. So I get up there and it looks like a cow under with these wires sticking out of the box. And so it's like, no, get an electrician in here and get that crap out of here. And they pulled all that, and I thought they had looked closely enough, but they had left a breaker that was run with two conductors and a ground that they used for 220. They used the ground as the neutral. Each of the legs was one of the conductors on the black and the white. Normally it would be neutral and hot. So that got pulled away immediately. So I don't, I'm afraid to discover what is hidden that we haven't found.
Yeah. As far as building inspectors go, my mom
inspector come in before she bought it, but they discovered some of the problems.
Yeah.
Nothing.
My mom, she put a small sunroom on the back of her house. She had a contractor do it, and he got the permits and all that. And then about 2/3 of the way through the job, maybe even 1/3 of the way through the job, because I finished the job, he just abandoned the job and ran off and left. He had already scheduled the inspection, and the inspector was coming. So she needed somebody to do something with all the open electrics and all this. And I went and fixed it all, but the inspector just came and basically he just looked and said, yep, and walked off. Signed off on it. He didn't do any kind of probes or anything. And I was kind of like, wow, we could have got away with a bunch of stuff. I mean, but I had it all up to code. I mean, I had read the code book, so I knew what I was supposed to do. And the only thing that I was a little worried about, which he didn't even mention, was how it turned, how I had the conduit turning from one corner to the other. Because it instead of a nice curvy turn, I kind of did a 90-degree turn because I just didn't have any other way to do it.
Did that involve kinking the conduit?
A little, but he didn't say anything about it. I had no other way to get it around there. And I'm sure a real contractor would have had some sort of pipe bender or something. So I just kind of went with a hammer and went, damn, okay, it's through. But he didn't seem all that concerned about it.
Well, over the years, building inspectors have saved my backside several times. I had a addition put on the house I'm sitting in right now in 87. And partway through, my wife decided that she'd like to have a skylight in the dining room. And so, without changing, we had architectural drawings and so forth done, without changing any permitting and so forth and so on. This guy who was working for us just popped in a skylight. So the building inspector comes around and he said, I don't remember that skylight being on the original plans. Yeah, okay. And so he goes and inspects it. He said, you're going to have to rip this out and start over again because the skylight weakens the roof structure. And with a weakened roof structure, now we're in earthquake area here in California, but with a weakened, it said, this is a disaster waiting to happen. So the contractor, we had a fixed price contract, and the contractor had to come back in, remove the original structure, and put in a proper skylight. And so that was one case, and a couple of other cases. But I was very appreciative of the fact that the building inspector called the number on it. He said, there is no way I'm going to pass this. So, fix it. And that made a pretty strong negotiating situation with our contractor. So
You take away structure, you have to replace the strength of the material you remove.
yeah, well, it turns out that the skylights, depending on the size and shape and so forth and so on, really, really compromise the roof structure. And you have to put a bunch of extra stuff in there, a bunch of extra reinforcing and so forth and so on. And I was really, really appreciative of the fact that the building inspector just said,
He did his job.
Yeah.
He did his job.
Yeah.
And
when I dealt with it, it was purely the electrical inspector. It wasn't the structure guy. I'm sure that was a different guy, but we had GFC, whatever that is. Why do I want to say S for everything today? S is stuck in my brain. GFC because it was an outside deal and we had the plastic cover thing over the outlet. And that was really all he cared about mostly. He was like, yeah, you got that, you're good. So
it's actually GFIC.
Yeah.
It's
Ground
ground fault interrupter,
circuit interrupter.
Circuit interrupter.
circuit interrupter, right?
The FCI. I'm a firm believer in them.
Yeah, I I appreciate the those. We've got them all over the place in the apartment, which I'm sure had something to do with the fact that it's an apartment. But
Well, you were talking about tubing bending. You folks may recall that I manufactured a recumbent trike several years ago.
Yeah.
Well, let me show you the tubing bend that I did for the seat. Do you have that on your screen?
no,
No, we got a bunch of four ugly guys.
Well, I can count as one of those, but share screen.
There we go.
That was a tubing bend challenge.
wow.
Is that stainless or is that
No, it's mild steel.
okay?
It's regular 1/2-inch conduit, but getting the orientation correctly to bend that. My wife and I are out there in the garage, and we have a little diagram that shows us what we're supposed to do in terms of the bends: 20 degrees, 20 degrees, 15, 15, 90, and 45. But it's like some go this way, some go that way, some are perpendicular to the floor, some are parallel to the floor. So we're out there with the tubing bender and the conduit saying, let's see, is this way or is this that way? And we did not complete it without having at least one of the bends 180 degrees away from where it was supposed to be. But tubing cutter fixed that.
Part of my problem was I didn't take into account the turn when I cut the wire. So I cut the wire too short, which I should have just replaced it, but everybody was under a time pressure because this guy was about an hour away, and I'm like, oh, gotta finish this. Gotta get something for him to inspect. So I beat this. Should have been like a little, I don't know what they call them. It's a little curved piece that goes and curves. It's not even conduit. It's just half conduit or whatever. But I didn't have that. So I just beat a piece of metal and bent it around the corner so that the wire had something to rest on. So it wasn't pulling on the wood. And that was the thing that I was the most worried about, and that was the thing that he didn't seem to care one bit about.
Didn't have any interest in.
Now, it was like, okay, I don't think that is going to pass code, but we've got something up there for him to look at, right? He didn't care. He was more interested. He wanted to make sure, because it was an outdoor install, that it had the right outlets and that everything from one side to the other was all going into that outlet, was all on that one circuit. And that was all he really, really cared about. So, and he did, and I could show him, and, it was all an open wall, so we could just look and he could trace back the wire to that outlet. And Everything was fine. He made me take the outlet out. That was really the only thing he really made me do, was take the outlet out of the box so that he could see how it was wired. The heck of the thing is my mom built that little whatever sunroom because she thought it would add value to the house, and the people that bought the house immediately tore it down. That was the first thing they tore down. I was like, yeah. She
Yeah.
went through all this, spent money. All right. So we are virtual again next week. And did everybody see the funkiness I had to do for December?
No.
I have not.
Okay. So December, it's still a ways off, but one meeting is going to start at 6 p.m. instead of 5. One of the in-person meetings, and it will go until 7:30 because I couldn't book the room for 5 o'clock. Somebody had it. So, and the other one is just like 15 minutes short. So it's, not a big deal, but a little bit shorter.
Yeah. I had that email pulled up and it's very clear. I completely understand what you got.
Yeah. So weirdness. I keep forgetting. What about October 31st? Is that Beggars Night? I don't know, dude.
Are you talking about
Halloween?
Halloween? Yeah.
Are they having Beggars Night on the 31st? Do we know?
Well, that varies according to the little
Yeah,
entities.
yeah. There's a potential that we might not have a meeting on the 31st, depending upon grandkids and all that
Yeah.
other fun stuff.
Okay.
And
As long as we know ahead of time, that's not a problem.
well, it's still what, a month and a week away, so shouldn't be a big deal. But then usually we don't have a meeting on Thanksgiving, which is the next big
Okay.
holiday. So that's really all I know. That's really all I've got.
Okay.
And I can kind of hear Patty out rattling the door, so that probably means food is coming.
Okay. So what's for dinner?
I think we are having rice today because we need to go
Rice?
grocery. Yes, because we need to go grocery shop, and I've been lazy and not gone. So I think we're having rice, and she's probably making hot dogs and rice because
I
Okay.
think I'm having body fat for supper.
oh,
Body fat?
that doesn't sound good
Well,
either.
They started me on Ozempic for diabetes, so I'm digesting my own flesh.
How it tastes?
Tasteless, absolutely tasteless.
You need to eat something other than body fat.
So I've been told, but I have no desire.
Yeah, I understand. So, I guess I will see everybody next week.
Yeah.
We'll be
Okay.
virtual. We'll be virtual again. So
Okie doke.
I will
Take care.
I will see everybody later.
Yeah.